Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Monday Night Workshop here at Omega Vector. Hello to everybody on Facebook. I hope that everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a good holiday as well. Here we are in December. I sat there this morning sitting at my computer thinking, I cannot believe how fast this year went. It just seemed like January 1st, and here we are in December. So time's speeding up, or I'm slowing down, maybe, I don't know. But I want to welcome you here. As you all may have noticed, the website is down. We are currently working on it. Hopefully, it should be up and running within the next couple of days. I did publish some of the dates for the upcoming programs for next year. You can't register for them yet because the website is down. But the big news is we finally do have an Omega 4 scheduled, which people have been waiting for that for a while now. Since we restarted, we haven't done a 4. So I will tell you this, the 4 is limited to 22 people. So first come, first serve, got to be an Omega 2 grad. That's how you do the 4. The Omega 4 is going to be June 28th to July 1st, and then that's the first weekend, and then the second weekend is July 5th to July 8th. That's 7 is July, right? Yeah. So again, Omega 4, 2 weekends in a row. It's June 28th to July 1st, and then the next weekend would be July 5th through the 8th. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You have the week off where you're doing work, and then you come back Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that will take care of that. Like I said, we haven't done that in a while, so I'm kind of excited about doing that one. And the other new thing that we are doing is we're starting a couples training. Hello, Greg. Long time no see, buddy. We're doing a couples training. We're calling it Omega Couples. So you don't have to be in a couple. It would be nice if you did have your significant other with you. But that will be done April 14th. April 14th to the 15th. I think we decided on 2 days on that one. So those are the two major new things. Oh, and then also the New Year's Day celebration. We're planning on meeting here for New Year's Day, resuming that. We haven't confirmed the actual location yet. We may not be able to be here, but I'm pretty sure that we will be here. It'll be from 11 in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, like what we used to do. We're going to do a potluck, little gathering, everyone chit-chat, and then I'll do a presentation of the numbers for 2018, which will be, so it's at 11 is a 2, right? I'm a 2. That's a 2. We're walking into a 2 year now. Okay. I think that's all of the announcements that I wanted to make. Does anybody else have an announcement that they would like to make? One at a time. Okay, not. Anybody on Facebook have an announcement that you would like to make? Can't see it, so I'll just say thank you. All right, so tonight's topic actually was moved. I mentioned that the book that I'm recommending this month is Yes, You Can Change the World. And I read this yesterday, as a matter of fact, or the day before, I can't remember. Great little book. And it really inspired me to do tonight's workshop on making a contribution. In Omega, we always talk about making a contribution. It's pretty much the foundation, how we make a contribution. George was one of the greatest people that I knew who made a great contribution. I look around in the world and I see so many teachers out there making contributions. And I was thinking, you don't really need to be a teacher to make a great contribution. Mark and I had a good experience in November. We were listening to Oprah and Deepak. They get together, Deepak Chopra, and they get together and do meditations. So we had signed up for a 22-day meditation on time management. And it was very nice to listen. She does a little talk at the beginning, and then Deepak does a little talk too, and then he takes you through a guided meditation where they do, it's actually transcendental meditation. It's a mantra. So he gave you some Sanskrit words that you would repeat doing the mantra, which I've never really practiced doing mantra meditation, so that was nice. But I really enjoyed it, mostly because we do it the first thing in the morning, and it was something I would share with Mark. And trying something different, but then I also learned to appreciate not only Deepak, but Oprah. I don't really know anything about Oprah. I'm not against her. I have never seen one of her shows, never. I've never seen an Ellen show. I see YouTube clips, but I don't sit down and watch the TV, actually. So I was very, very inspired by her. She has some very good insights, and not that I would say I wrote her off as a TV personality, but you wouldn't consider someone like that to be quite deep, and she is. She's very deep. She has Soul Sundays, I think, is something she does now, where it's a one-on-one talk with people. And I've actually watched a couple of those, and I've been very impressed with her questions and the guests that she's been on. So it came to understand that a teacher could be anybody. It could be a celebrity, or it could be my 6-year-old granddaughter or something. You can always learn from others. And then we could always make contributions to others as well, consciously or unconsciously. I like the ripple effect, which in the book you did talk about this, when you throw a pebble in the pond and the ripples go and eventually goes all the way across the pond, and you forget that it all started with the pebble. Most ripples are just related to the one before or the one next to it. We often forget where the source comes from. And I love that idea. Many, many years ago in facilitator training, George used to say, we're the farmers. We're sowing the seeds. We will never reap the crops. We're sowing the seeds. We'll never see the benefits of what we do, which I agree with. You know, our job is to sow the seeds and off you go. And you make a contribution, you make a contribution. I can tell you, early on, back in the 90s, I'd go out to lunch with George sometimes, and inevitably, wherever we went, there would always be someone like, George, and come and hug you, and then go get their family and introduce their family to him, and I'd be sitting there like, okay, and sometimes we'd have his grandchildren with us, and they're like, why is everybody always talking to Grandpa? I'm like, well, honey, Grandpa's a very special person. But it was like the contribution that he would make, people that he didn't even know. They would just be, again, like the ripple effect. I remember a few years ago, it's been now, Mark and I flew back to Buffalo. My adopted dad was dying, and I got a phone call that it wasn't going to be much longer, and I only had a brief time period to get out there, so we flew out there for the July 4th weekend, I think it was, in Buffalo. And I know I've talked about Art before and the impact that he's made in my life, but it was surreal, I guess, to sit next to him and listen to my husband tell Art how much of an impact Art made in my life, and that I'm passing that on to other. Like, I never made that connection. I did, but I never thought, wow, Art really did influence. And then, of course, I was just one child in a very long list of children that Art had taken in and been a great benefactor to. So whenever I think about contributions, I always think naturally of Art and George, the two greatest influences that I've had in my life. I came across this quote. It says, success is not a function of the size of your title, but the richness of your contribution. And I like that. Of course, being an executive business coach, we talk about making contributions to your employees. They're not just numbers. It's not just about the profit. It's about people and working together. But the contribution, most of the time, especially around the holidays now, people think of contribution as gifts, monetary, and, you know, how much money do you need? I remember having a conversation with someone saying, I'm so tired of getting gift cards. Like, they got like 10 gift cards. Like, you can't even go get me a gift, you just get me a gift card. And now you could just do that at Fry's. You go stand in that thing and there's like 100 different gift cards you can choose, and there you go. And this woman was really upset that she had gotten 10 gift cards, and I don't even want them anymore. And me personally, I forget I have the gift cards. I put them in my wallet, and a year will go by. I'm like, oh, gift card, oops. And then some gift cards actually take the money away from you if you don't use them. Have you seen those? That's kind of funny. Anyway, it's the intention behind the gift. That's what we ended up talking about. So, as I stated in the little article, that every once in a while, human beings, or eventually almost every human being, starts to contemplate their existence. They start to contemplate, what's their contribution? Why am I here? Is this it? I've met a number of people who were wealthy and retired and alcoholics because they had nothing else to do. Or they travel around the world always looking for something else to fill the void because they really had no sense of contribution. Their focus was all on the exterior world. I've also met a number of people who focused a lot on themselves. And then when they retired, nobody else was praising them. So they shriveled away quite quickly, very depressed on that as well. So there's got to be a balance. One of the things we often talk about is a work-life balance. But there has to be the balance and the understanding of what else am I here for? Early in Mega, we used to talk about the idea that we're a human being, a part spirit and part human. So we'd have to do something for our physical body, earn a living, make a contribution to society, and then something for our soul. I mean, George used to illustrate the idea that that meant you volunteer. Do something for nothing, without any expectations. You don't volunteer because you want to hook up with people. You don't want to volunteer because you want the praise. You volunteer because it's something that's needed. And making the contributions. And there's a lot of that happening today, which I'm very grateful to see. As much as the millennials get picked on, me included, as much as the millennials get picked on, they're also very in touch with contributions and making donations. Not donations financially, but going out of their way to help people. I'm really moved by some of the stories that I read about the younger generations and the things that they're doing for older people or for the homeless or the veterans. Animals is another big thing as well. So I was thinking about the topics of making a contribution. How do I just be? You remember that phrase of just be in the meditations, just be. When I went to Amazon and I typed in how to make a contribution, and I came back with 113 titles. So then I changed it and I said, how about make a difference? And making a difference, there were 4,199 titles. And then I said, how about just being? Because that's something a lot of people have talked about. Almost every teacher that I've read about has talked about the idea of being, our presence, our being. Well, the being, 57,531 books. 57,531 books. That's a lot of people talking about being. And if there's that many people talking about it, how come we're not doing it? I mean, why aren't we being? If there's that much information, it seems like we like to talk about it, but we don't want to listen or actually implement it. And it's really not that hard, but it is. Being. For those of you who've ever practiced meditation, you know what it's like to try to quiet your mind, quiet your emotions, and not move your body. You sit there, you got your mind not going, okay, God, and all of a sudden itch, and then you don't want to move your hand because your nose is itching, and you don't want to twitch your nose. Now you're getting upset because you're itching, and then, oh, wait, calm, and you go through that whole cycle. One of my favorite depictions of meditation was Julia Roberts in the movie Eat, Pray, Love. She sat there and tried to meditate. She's going, and then she opens her eyes, and 1 minute had passed, and she had to sit there for a whole hour. She's like, you're kidding me! It was very funny, because when you first learn how to meditate, that is what we struggle with. The idea of being calm, being. But if we were to be able to get our mind to be still, our emotions to be calm, and not let our physical body interfere, we'll have that experience of being. It's awkward and odd for us because we're not accustomed to it. We're accustomed to the doing. Let's move mountain, let's do. We're not accustomed to just be. Now, on the flip side, it doesn't mean you're a doormat and you don't do anything. Obviously, it deals with presence. So I did go to the definition in the dictionary, and it said that being is defined as the state of existing or living or something that exists. So naturally, it's connected to living, something that exists. That's the being. And I thought, that's kind of curious that we're called human beings. We don't call dogs dog beings or animal beings, but we're the only creature on the planet that's called a being, except for string beans if you're in the South. String beans. Sorry. But we're the only ones, don't laugh at me. We're the only ones that are called human beings. And I think that's quite profound because we are human and we're a being, an existence in the human. Anyway, I remember when I was really young or growing up, my aunts and uncles would always ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be? We even say that to our kids. What do you want to be when you grow up? And you know, there's a whole plethora of things that we can choose from. Actors spend a lot of time being somebody. I've got to be somebody. I thought about the line from Streetcar Desire. I could have been a contender. Like we had that desire to be somebody. All the millennials are like, Streetcar named Desire? And then, of course, like I said, in the metaphysical world, we practice just be. As a matter of fact, I have a friend of mine. She has the license plate that says just be. She's had it for almost 20 years. Shella, she's had it for almost 20 years now. High five to Shella. So again, back to the idea of struggling with the being. So what I thought I would do is talk just briefly about encounters. Like if you think about events in your life where you've taken a risk and you stepped into it, at that moment that you're doing the risk, you're being. Nothing else exists. Whether you're filled with fear as you're flying through the air waiting for the parachute to open, or you're terrified because you're surrounded by gorillas, or if you're on the wolf compound. But in those moments, you're existing. Nothing else matters. Your senses are heightened. It's almost like time stops and expands. And there's no way to explain that unless you're in it. So I was thinking of how one easy thing people can understand, being in love. For those of you who've had that experience of being loved, sometimes the most profound experiences that you have with your significant other, and when there's no word spoken. You could be sitting there watching a sunset with your husband or wife or partner, not say a word, and yet you're truly moved. Or you could be in Starbucks reading a book. Not saying a word, but just sharing space with them. Sharing commonality. Like I said, the meditations was a really good experience for me. I've looked into my husband's eyes, and there are moments when I look into his eyes, not just look at him, but look into his eyes, and I am moved to tears. Not because I love him and he's this good-looking guy standing in front of me, but it's because I feel that deep love from him to me. I could feel it. Like you travel down the eyes and you feel that connection. We were just at my niece's wedding, and there were a few times we're dancing and not a word is spoken between us, but I'm listening to the songs and I'm looking in his eyes and I got tears streaming down my face because I'm so moved. Now, so for those of you who've been in those experiences, you know what I mean. You can't write it down. You can't speak. It's just those moments that you're in. That's being. Not every moment is going to bring you to tears. But the idea is when you take those risks, like I've mentioned, you take those risks, all of a sudden, you're boom, here you are, right in the present moment. So I think I can confidently say that most of the moments I've had in my life where there was adventure and thrill and risk involved being. May not have lasted long, but in those moments, nothing else existed. Except for me, I was being. Even though I'm in an environment, I was the only one that existed. I was thinking about, being kissed by a bald eagle. How many people get to have that experience, how terrifying it was, and how profound it was. And all I have to do, I was still there. I close my eyes, boom, I'm there. I know it, I feel it. I can pull that back to me that fast. Or kayaking with killer whales. I'm terrified. But yet here I am in that moment. That moment where that big guy stopped right in front of me and just glared at me. Heart stopped, but I was there and nothing else existed. Or skydiving, which I've done, rappelling, which I've loved to do. All of those were moments. I remember the first time I rappelled. I looked down that cliff and went, okay, I'm not afraid of heights, but I'm not too sure about this rope. I'm good with the height, but this rope, I don't know. It's kind of like the width of my finger. And that's supposed to hold me. So that was more frightening for me. And most of you probably know this story that when I first went rappelling, I took a bunch of teenagers. We had about 30 kids with us, and I had 3 or 4 guides helping us. And when I was at the top of the mountain, this one little girl, she was so priceless. Elizabeth was her name, I remember. 12 years old, she went to the cliff and she started shaking her little legs. And I'm like, okay, it's okay, honey, it's okay. And she looked out at me and she goes, will you go with me? And I was like, wow, I've never done this before, but sure, we could do this. And I faked it the whole way. I went over the mountain, I'm talking to her, I'm bouncing up and down, I'm having fun. I wasn't paying attention to the rappelling, I just wanted to make sure she wasn't scared. And I got down to the bottom and I looked up and went, man, I just went down a 100-foot cliff. That was kind of cool. Nobody tells you, though, when you rappel, you have to climb back up to do it again. And then when you got 30 kids who want you to go with them, that's a lot of I'm like, can you just pull me back up, please? It doesn't work that way. The belay guy, you're down. That's it. You gotta go back up. But anyway, those moments, I know, I felt it. You can't describe it. So I know you've had these experiences. When you're in those moments, you've taken those risks, you feel it. You're just there. And then I was thinking of, like George. We mentioned George already. He was a wonderful being. And he was also wonderful at being. Those of you who had the honor and privilege of meeting him, he had the innate ability to be present with whoever stood in front of him. People walked away and felt like they were his best friend. I can't tell you how many times people would say, oh, I'm George's best friend, you know, and I'd look at them like, what is wrong with you? You just had a meeting with him once, but you know, I get those, oh, I'm George, this is George's best friend. I want to schedule some time. And, you know, I'd just go, okay. But I learned by watching him, and he did it. He would sit there and lock on you, and you were all that mattered. When you would talk to George, that was it. It was only you. And that ability to find the value in people, didn't matter who it was, didn't matter if you were arguing with him and telling him he was wrong, his information was incorrect, if you're bringing proof that he needs to change, he wouldn't mind. Okay, great, thank you. And he truly meant it. If you've ever been to the study groups, usually after a study group, sometimes 300 to 500 people, there would be this long line of people that would come up to him. Some of them would have presents. Some of them wanted to just have a conversation with him. There would be other people who'd say, well, you know, what you wrote here is incorrect. And he never once said, well, oh. He said, well, thank you very much. I will look into this. And he would take it, and he would write a handwritten note. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You are correct. I'll alter my stuff and send it out to them. Who takes time to write a handwritten note? That was George. It was 100% with whoever stood in front of him. By doing that, what he did was gave his presence. He was being. I guess that's what it was. Nothing else mattered. He just was there. If you've ever seen him in the classroom, same thing. When he stepped out on the floor, he was what, nothing else mattered. I've seen this happen a number of times with other people. Mike Ovens, one of our facilitators, his mother died during a training. He stayed. What is he going to do? She's dead. So he stayed. He kept delivering because what else was he going to do? That was a sense of being, dedication, loyalty, and commitment, but really being. Mike had that moment where he knew. We also have another story of, a few stories actually, of staff members whose children were killed, and they staffed until the end of the shift, and then they would go and find their child. But you know, that to me is not just loyalty, but there's something about George that drew that greatness out of them, where they understood there's nothing I can do. Let me finish what I said I was going to do, and then I'll take care of it. I mean, that was, and it wasn't like a cult. It was their choice. George is like, go, and no, I'm going to stay. So it was very beautiful to watch. I actually feel very grateful that I had the opportunity to work with him as long as I did. So I was thinking about, when you think back to somebody that you know in your life who made an influence, think of the characteristics, the way that made you feel when you sat in front of them. Perhaps maybe you can remember their smile or their presence, any words of wisdom they may have passed out. That's what I think about when we make a contribution. Sometimes our greatest contribution will not be seen. Like we said before with the farmer sowing the seeds. Sometimes our greatest contribution might be 2 generations down the road. You never know. We have no idea what our greatest contribution can be. Like if I think about this, did Rosa Parks' grandmother think that she was going to have a granddaughter that revolutionized society? I don't think so. But there was something in her grandmother that passed it down. Somewhere along the lines, Rosa Parks was born, and we had a revolution, somewhat. Revolution. So anyway, back to this book. I was thinking about not so much being to see how much I'm contributing, but who in front of me is being, and who can I be being to? That sounded a little like quasi BBB. But who can I be a presence to? I mean, I feel grateful and fortunate that I get to be in front of Omega. I get to be in front of the classroom. I know I'm making a contribution there. I consciously make the effort. But that's not the only place that we can make a contribution. I can make a contribution to the person at Starbucks at the window. A smile, a quick little joke, the cash register lady making a comment about, you know, the little pins they wear now. Just anything. Just make a contribution to them and they smile. I've said this before and I'll probably say it a number of times. Human beings, our number one drive is to feel of value, that we matter, that we matter. So what does it take for me to say that you matter? Nothing really. It's easy. Every person in front of me, I can choose to feel like you matter. Many years ago, George had this meditation where he had you put the person that you liked the least in the meditation, and then switch heads and put somebody that you loved, their head, on the person's body. I refused to do it. It was a little odd first. Now you can do it in Photoshopping, or with the Snapchat thing, or the ghost thing, whatever. But you would put switch heads, and the intention was, if you could see that person, then the feeling would change. And I actually started doing this in the classroom. My granddaughter had just been born, so I saw beautiful Mackenzie's face, and every time I had somebody who was aggressive, or I went, I put Mackenzie's face on them. And I felt like I was cheating at first, because it's like, I'm not really dealing with this person, but it actually worked, because the love and compassion that I had Mackenzie was transferred to the person that I was dealing with. And I didn't walk away feeling, it was like, oh, I can make a contribution to, they were quite different, and start to recognize that not everybody has to be a certain way. I remember one of the first times I ever saw George handle an aggressive individual. I was very impressed the way he handled it. But what mostly impressed me was the way the group shifted. Everybody in the group no longer saw this person as an aggressive individual. It's like they embraced him. Because George, the way George handled him, nobody was offended with him anymore. They wanted him out. They were like voting to kick him out. They didn't want him in the program anymore. And George took the devil's advocate side. And I remember he did it so masterfully. I sat there and thought, man, there's no way I would have lost him. There's no way I would have been able to get this guy, because he was very aggressive and was intentionally trying to destroy the program. Intentionally. But George was so masterful at that. Anyway, so back to this book. The reason why I really like it, very simple. We already know these things. But what he said is the number one thing that we must do is we have to see the intrinsic worth of every person that you encounter. So whoever stands in front of me, whoever stands in front of you, we find them worthy. Now, Omega, we switch the word to value. Everyone who has value. Everyone stands in front of me, we find value. But I'll go with this gentleman's word, worth. So what does worth mean to you? Somebody, what do you think worth means? And don't say value.
What they contribute.
Their contribution, absolutely. So if somebody has worth, we recognize they're bringing something to the table. So it is value, but it's what their contribution is. So in other words, for me to make a contribution to you, I find out what your contribution is. That's an easy thing to do. If we don't have any upset, anger, attachment, emotional, judgment, and you name any of those, if we could just find them as value. And there's some good illustrations in here. But the idea is to find the intrinsic worth in every person. And there's a 3-step process to do this. So the first one, he says, focus not on how little time you have, but on how much to make the most of what little time you have with every person. So not be concerned about, I don't have enough time. Just bring yourself back into here I am in the present moment. How do I make the best of this moment right now? And I was thinking how, there are times where I look at the phone, I sing it ringing, I go, no, I don't have time. Because I know if I answer this phone, it's going to be an hour. Like today, I was on the phone with my daughter for a little over an hour. Didn't expect that, but it happened. It's okay. But there are times where I do know if I get on the phone, it's going to be a long phone call, I'm not answering the phone. There are times when, I've met people who do the obligatory parent calls every weekend. You do the phone call and check in, and they dread it. Because they know they're not going to want to hang up, because the mom or the dad really is lonely, and they just want to keep talking and talking. And I mean, there's been a couple of times where I'll talk to my dad, and all right, Dad, I love you. All right, and then he'll go, all right, love you, bye. Oh, wait. And then he'll add another thing, and it makes me laugh. I'm like, okay, Dad. And then, Oh, and then did you know, so he'll say goodbye and then keep talking. It's very priceless. My mom does that sometimes too. But I understand. I mean, they're 80 years old. They're not as active anymore. And, you know, the connection is necessary. So many years ago, I actually did, not many years ago, but some time ago, I decided, you know what, when I'm on the phone with them, I'm not going to regret that I have to call them, because I don't have to call them. I'm choosing to call them. And to really find out about their lives. What is going on? How is it going? Because I thought, what must it have been like to have this child in your life every single day? You dress them, you feed them, you take them to school, you take them to softball practice, whatever. And then 18 years old, they're gone. So for 18 years, you are every day part of their lives, and then you never hear from them. That's going to be difficult. When I moved to Arizona, I didn't talk to my family for maybe 4 months. They didn't even know where I was. I called for Christmas. Hey, how's it going? They were like, where are you? I mean, they knew I was in Arizona. They just didn't know what part or not. But I hadn't had that connection in my head until I got into Omega, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm missing moments here. And is that really the type of person I want to be? And then there's sometimes I think about when I get older, I wonder if my children or my stepchildren, you know, once they're out of the house, I mean, we are already experiencing it now. They're teenagers. We never hear from them. We never see them unless they need something, money, or ride. But that's what every teenager does. I did that. Everybody does that. So they're going through the teenage stage. That doesn't surprise me. But I wonder how that will affect them. And then, of course, today's society is a little bit different. When I grew up, everybody was married. It was rare to have divorced parents. Today, it's rare to have married parents. Everyone has divorces. So you've got 2 families you have to go to, and 4 sets of grandparents. I mean, sometimes 6 sets of grandparents. It's just a lot. So I understand the struggle that kids go through today. So focus on the time that you have, not that it's a little time, but how do I make the time that I have quality time? One of the things he talked about was listening, truly listening. Said that most people, when they listen, they're waiting for their turn to speak. That's not listening. If you have a response in your head ready to go, that's not listening. Listening is when you actually are absorbing what the person said. He said one little trick was to look at their eyes. Look into their eyes and see if you can describe what their eyes look like. The color, the shape, how many red lines are in the whites of their eyes. Like really focus in on those eyes. Because those of you who know, eye contact is very profound and very connective. So when I hold the eye contact with an individual, they actually feel valuable. I may not be able to hear every word you're saying, but I look into your eyes. Now, I tried this last night. My son loves video games, loves video games. He can go on for hours, which he did. I asked him a question, and I try to follow up. I try to follow and get the characters right and the name of the games and stuff. And so he sat across the table, came over. It was our night to have them. So he came over and we're having dinner. And he was kind of in a blasé mood. So I started to ask him, oh, did you play games this weekend at your mom's house? And what did you play? And, oh, isn't that new game that you just started? And what are the characters again? And he came alive. And and then I'd break away and ask Mark a question, and then I'd go back and Justin would go, so, and pick right back up where he left off. And I get it. He's got the attention and he feels valuable. So I did. I just fully focused on him, and I looked in his eyes and I thought, man, I've never noticed, but he's got some really big brown eyes. He's got brown eyes, but I didn't realize how big his eyes are. And I held the eye contact, and he usually doesn't open his eyes a lot. I'm like, Mark does this too, where his eyes aren't open a lot. They're kind of squinched. So Joe's, his eyes they weren't last night. They were open. They were talking about, and I know that he was telling me the different levels that you could make in one season. It's 3 months, and you can go from bronze, silver, brass, platinum. I don't remember, but diamond's the where to go. You want to get I don't remember everything, but I was listening, but there was a lot of information, but I just knew if I sat there, he felt valuable. And he did. He picked up a little bit. So he actually became a little bit alive. And I thought, wow, that really didn't take much time at all. Even though I was under stress and I had other things to do, I had committed that I was, for dinner, going to give him 100% of my attention. And I felt the difference. I really did feel the difference with him. And then, like I said, I had a phone call with my daughter today, which was, haven't talked to her in a while, and I just sat there and listened and just kept thinking, how do I be present? So I did it because I wanted to experiment. How do you be present with someone that you can't see? So how can I make her feel valuable when she can't see me? And when I hung up the phone, I told Mark, it was actually, I struggled a bit because I wanted to give her advice. Here, this is what you need to, and then I'd say, no, not what you need to do. Well, honey, have you thought about this? And perhaps maybe have you thought about that? And then I'd say, no advice, just listen to her. And so I really struggled with trying to connect with her when I couldn't see her. And I just knew it was on the phone. So I'd make the conscious efforts of saying, oh, that's funny, and oh, that's good. Like I made sure I made comments so she knew I was still there. Because she might not have known she was on a roll. Have you ever been on those conversations where people just, they don't even know that? I've done this before where I've had clients sometimes, not all my clients, but I put the phone down and they're going through this long story, and I'll get up and I'll make a cup of coffee or something and they don't even know. And then I feel bad because I'm like, oh, I'm not being with them. I just know that they're going. Early on in my career, I used to do that. I don't do that now. I remember I had a conversation one time with one of my friends, and I was talking about how I sat in the car with her and her kids were in the back, and the kids were all giggling and laughing, and she's like, I'm talking, be quiet. And it's like, oh, they're just talking. It's okay. They're not distracting or anything. Or we'll be out to lunch, and this is her. Kids are sitting at the table. And I'm like, interactions? So we're going to talk about that in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about the human connection. I know I've mentioned this before where I've walked by a Subway and there was a mom sitting there with her little son. He must have been about 4 years old, little feet swinging on the chair, just very quietly looking up at mom, and mom's on the phone. Not even talking, just something on the phone, swiping, and he's sitting there, takes a bite, he looks at her. Takes another bite, he looks at her. And like, I knew when I walked past him, my heart sank already because I knew he's already been taught, if mom's on the phone, you don't make a noise. And I thought, my God, 4 years old and this poor kid knows not to speak because his mom's on the phone. Clearly I'm aware, it's a judgment, I get it. But my heart sank, thinking this 4 years old and he learns not to speak because this is more important. It was really, there's my husband. This is, sorry, here's Mark. Oh, you're black now. Anyway, making the most of our time. That's the first thing. First step, make the most of your time. Whatever time you have, give 100% to the person who you're sharing that time with. The second step that he mentions is focus not on what you see on the outside of a person, but on the person within. See the pain within and see the potential within. And this addresses mostly people that annoy us, people that we judge, people we get offended by. I will never forget one time George said to me, your judgment is going to destroy you. And I was really taken back. What do you mean judgment? I don't judge. And yeah, duh. So I actively started thinking about, I thought I was sly. If I didn't say it, it wasn't judging, but my mind is going, and then I know that's not it either. So I actively work. I'm still doing it, I know, but I'm more aware. I'm not wanting to be judgmental. But you think about the people, and this pertains a lot to Omega, find the value. Think about the people who have injured you and find the value. There's something out of every event that we've gone through, and it makes a contribution to us, so find the value. It addresses the way we address those people. If there's somebody who's aggressive towards us, do we get aggressive back to them? No. Find the value. What was George's line? You can love a rattlesnake, but you don't need to live with one. Find the value. So I just find the value. There may be an aggressive person who doesn't want to have anything to do with me. That's okay. I find the value. What can I learn? And recognizing, of course, everyone experiences pain. Somebody might be acting out because they're in pain. So if I was in pain, would I want someone to react to me? No, I'd want compassion. I would want understanding. I would want someone to say, hey, it's going to be okay. So the golden rule, treat others as you wish to be treated. So that's pretty much what that second one comes down to. is the idea that instead of reacting to what you see on the outside, somebody barking, someone screaming, stop for a moment and think about what's on the inside. What are they suffering? What are their trials and tribulations? How are they hurting? I may not be able to do anything about it, but if I could connect to that, then I no longer need to be judgmental of them. I recognize it. Oh, yeah, there's pain. I could say a little prayer. I hope you find what you're looking for. I could express gratitude. Have you ever smiled at a waiter that was gruff? Every once in a while you get gruff waiters. Have you ever smiled at them? Most of the time they won't look at you because they're very gruff. And so, I've done the thing where they'd reach for my plate and I held onto the plate, which makes them look at you like, what are you doing? And I would just smile and say, thank you, I appreciate that. And they'd, oh, you're welcome. And then they walk away. It's hard to do because if they're gruff, you understand they're having a bad day. So you understand it. Yelling at them isn't going to help. I remember one time there was this incident. No, I don't want to talk about that. Anyway, so not react to the way somebody's being. Always remember there's a story. So look for the story and find the value in them. That's the second one. And number 3, the last one is focus not what's on wrong with a person, but what makes them right. So see the strength within their weakness. So this is a good one. Find the weakness and turn it into a strength. So the story that it told, which I think is great, there was this one employee, don't touch my stuff, and very agitated and ornery and just aggressive. Don't touch my stuff. Where are you going? Very possessive. And so the manager was like, I don't know what to do with this guy. He has a high turnover in his department, but everybody wants him to fire him, including his boss. But he doesn't want to because he thought there's got to be something good about this. So what he thought about was, if the guy's possessive and very organized, everything's got to be in a certain way, what area in the company would he work well in? Accounting, the warehouse, which the warehouse was a place that they were really stressing over. So people were coming in, there was no inventory. They were always off. Every time they tried to inventory everything was off. There was no lot. So this manager decided, let me put him in the warehouse. What do you think happened? No more thefts in the warehouse. The guy was happy. He implemented rules and regulations that if you weren't allowed in the warehouse unless you had permission to be in the warehouse. There was paperwork you had to fill out. And when they did inventory, it was to the T. I mean, it just was amazing. So find something that you consider a weakness and turn it into a strength. Now in Omega, we like to say, or not Omega, in my business, I like to say, use the person where they fit. If they don't fit in the job that they're doing, put them in a job that they do fit in. You might have somebody who's excellent at numbers, but they have terrible people skills. Get them off the phone. They are not a salesperson. Put them in accounting. You might have a chatty Cathy. That's your salesperson. Don't put them in charge of accounting because put them in the sales department. So find the things that you think, oh, and spin it around. What's the strength in this person? Where can this person fit? So that's a very key to successful businesses. Put the people in the places that they fit. It always makes me think of, I'm probably dating myself, but have you ever seen that round ball that had like a star and a circle and a square, and then you had the little plastic pieces and the star wouldn't fit in the circle, you had to put it in the right place? That's what I always think about. Find the person where it fits. And what you usually end up having is success. I think that's a tremendous asset. As a matter of fact, you can look at people like Elon Musk, Warren Buffett. These are people who worked and went, and thought outside the box, but they found things that worked for them. Hey, if this isn't going to work, well, let's try something else. I love the idea what Tesla's doing. They just released the prototype for a 18-wheel electric truck. An 18-wheeler. They just released the prototype. As a matter of fact, I think Walmart has already ordered a number of them. But an electric truck, they're on the fence about making it self-driving. But it's an electric truck equipped with everything that the Tesla automobiles have. I think that's phenomenal. Can you imagine that no more drivers falling asleep at the wheel? Look how much it would save. I mean, how much gasoline does an 18-wheeler take? Thank you for that confirmation. Score. That's football for goal, not okay. So the 18-wheelers now, I mean, that's thinking outside the box. That's what I mean. So that's the idea of finding plugs, things that work. Instead of taking aggression to someone, how do I make it work? Now, as parents, we know that. When you're first raising your children, do this, do that, and they don't want to, and then we have to do the bribing. Well, if you do this, then you'll get that, and then that only works for a certain bit, and then you have to do the threatening. If you don't do this, I'm going to take away X, Y, and Z. I mean, every parent goes through this. But when you find what makes it work for them, it changes. Like if you have a child that's very disorganized, clutter everywhere, give them an opportunity to bake. Have you ever baked in the kitchen? You make a mess. And it's part of the baking, you know, flour here, flour there. And they end up, and then having to clean up, they recognize, oh, somebody has to do the cleaning up when I make the mess. And they start to understand, oh, and they become more responsible. So just find the things that your kids are good at, and like we have learned how to do that. A funny story here, I had a client the other day. His son, I'm just going to share, it's a really funny story. His 6-year-old son has been pulled into the principal's office 3 times now because he throws food in the cafeteria. And he hit one of the teachers with a string bean. He hit one of the teachers with a string bean. So the guy's beside himself because his son doesn't like video games. He doesn't really play outside. You know, he's 6. So there's not much he does. How do I punish my kid? What do I do? And it's very funny. Like he's trying to talk to him and keep a straight face. You're not supposed to throw food. His son knows you're not supposed to throw food, but he just keeps doing it. And he's like, you know, it's not like he's a bad kid. He just knows that there's other kids that are influencing him. So I gave him one of my all-time favorite punishments. You take a plastic bag and you go out and you pick up the dog poop with the plastic bag. You have to feel it. And hopefully you can get it right when the dog poops. That's so gross. It is so gross. But you do it for a week, and that kid will not forget picking up dog poop with a plastic bag, because it's not the scooper thingy. Plastic bag with your hand, pick up hot poop. Yeah, go to the dog park. Sometimes I say, go to the dog park and pick up the dog poop in there. He'll not do it anymore. But you got to be creative. That's what I mean. So that's another thing, thinking about what can you do to make things fit. So anyway, focus not on what's wrong, but what's right with people, and find their strengths in their weaknesses. That's what it really comes down to. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses, but we find the strength in the weaknesses. You know, we understand the Hermetic principle of polarity. Polarity is 2 sides, like a thermometer. You're either hot or you're cold, but it's the same linear line of temperature. The topic is temperature, so it's either hot or cold. So what somebody might consider to be hot, another person might be considered to be cold. If you move along the line, you can transfer from hot to cold. So somewhere, when we see something that is a weakness and the strength, it's the same perimeter here. So if all I have to do is flip it and see that the weakness can be their strength, that's really all it is. It's a matter of understanding polarity and how I can look and find the opposite and find value in the opposite. So when the 3 of those come together, you have focus not on how little time you have, but on how much to make the most of the time that you have. Number 2, see what's on, not focus on what's on the outside, but what's on the inside of people, connecting with their pain and their potential. And number 3, taking their weaknesses and turning them into strength. All 3 of those things combined together is what makes somebody find worth, intrinsic worth, in every person that you encounter. Now, do you think that's an easy task to do? Of course not. I have my own little agendas and my own little time and things that I've got to get done. I don't want to spend the time doing all of this all the time. George used to always call this the work. So don't worry about it, Pierre. It's okay, thank you. He used to call it the work, because it is. It's the work. It's remembering every moment. Okay, time. How much time do I have? And in today's society, we're so pushed with time. And I don't think if it's more or less, but I think because the net, the internet, and things happen so fast now, I think I feel the pressure more, because It's constant, how come you didn't have it done 10 minutes ago? It feels more present, the idea of the time limited. So I feel like that in that time, the stress is increased. But when you take the moment and you're spending that moment with the person, there's no stress. Like I said, when I sat with my son last night, I wasn't thinking, I got to get going, I got to go. I really was 100% on him. If I sat there and thought, how much longer is this going to be? Then the stress would have increased and it completely diminished what my task would have been. So bring ourselves back into the present moment and be there for them. Because especially with kids, how much longer are they going to be in front of us? Our adult parents, how much longer are they going to be here? So how much can I make a contribution? There was a quote in the book also where he mentioned, I'm going to duck for a second, back. There's a quote in the book where he talked about, just give me a moment. Here it is. It says, ask yourself this question. What kind of person am I if I do not help make this world better? What kind of person are you if you don't help make the world better? Now, there's no judgment there, but it's a good question to ask. If this was the last day of your life, would you be happy? Would you feel like you made a contribution? Would you feel like you handled everything well? The other thing I really like about it, the idea is, the past is the past. How many times do we get together and we talk about the things we did in the past and the wrongs that we've had? Usually families and siblings do this a lot whenever they get together. Do you remember when X, Y, and Z happened? And get all upset and angry. We don't have to do that. The past is over. You can show up every moment new. Just in that moment new. Doesn't matter about the past right now. Hey, how's it going? What are you doing? How's your life been? Are you happy? Are you sad? Fill it with joy. We can look every moment for joy and beauty. Every moment. There's joy and beauty. If we remember that, every moment, joy and beauty. What's the parable that Jesus was walking down the road and there was a dog decaying on the side? And the apostles were like, oh, that's disgusting. And Jesus said, oh, but his teeth look like pearls. Everything has beauty. We have to search for it. And I think that's the joy there. If I were to spend my time finding the value and the joy in others, I think I would understand George at a deeper level, because that's what he did. He found the joy, the beauty, and the value of every person who stood in front of him. I think that would be a tremendous goal to strive for. So that's what I wanted to end up with the Monday Night Workshop. The last one of the year for 2017 was to challenge you, especially in the holiday season, knowing that you're going to be seeing your family and friends and loved ones, or the stress increases at work because people are taking vacations and holidays, got to get it done, deadlines. Take a moment and remember, quality time, find the value in people, look for the strength and the weaknesses. If we can do that, then we find the value in them. Especially, I feel bad for the Santa Clauses, the Salvation Army Santa Clauses. Are always, how many people just walk right past them because they're so sick of seeing them? Every store you have a Santa Claus. But if we can stop and find the value in that, sometimes I don't give money, but I'll say thank you so much for standing here to collect for the Salvation Army. Just even that, or have a nice day, or thank you for being anything. I love talking to the greeters at Walmart. They're so cute. But even them, even that whole rule right there is Walmart's way of finding value in people. Have a greeter. Somebody who greets people coming into the door, an older person who has nothing else to do most of the time, let them be the greeter. It's like a win-win. I think that was very ingenious of Walmart to do that. Costco started doing it too, but Walmart was the first one to have the greeters out there welcoming you and how was your day? And you actually can have a really good conversation with some of them. They're very priceless. Anyway, that's all I have to say on the topic. Any comments or questions before we close down? Awesome. Well, enjoy the next few weeks. And our Wednesday night workshop is in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about the human connection, the ability to unplug, and the value of our human connections. I have 5 reasons why we should unplug. So until then, I'm going to unplug right now. Have a nice night.